welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Wave 3 Voyager class Armada Starscream. Let's start off by taking a look at the packaging, and then we will get into the review. So of course we have Transformers on the side, we have the Legacy logo, and this artwork shot of Starscream in his jet mode with his two accessories, the sword wing, and of course the Star Saber. We do have Armada Universe Starscream, a nice open window displaying the figure in packaging in the robot mode. We do have two nice artwork shots of a close-up of his face, and of course a zoomed out shot of him in his really cool battle pose, and of course on the back he transforms in 18 steps, two product shots, one of the robot and one of the jet mode, with all of his accessories looking very cool. And of course we have the classic Legacy Decepticon artwork, and that is pretty much it for the packaging, so let's now get into the review. Here we have Armada Starscream in his jet mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very front with the nose cone and cockpit section. There's a really nice metallic blue for the cockpit, with some really nice glossy black plastic for the wings, and the nose itself with some really nice dark red, almost glossy red for the main body of the jet. Getting down to the wing, really classic Decepticon symbol on each wing, with some really nice red trim on the tip of the wing itself, all the way going to the back. And of course we have the huge intake sections here, done with some really nice yellow on the interior, with some black on the outer part as well, with huge engine sections, which can also form huge cannons. If you watched Armada and you saw Starscream, you know exactly what these do, which I will get into in just a sec. Also, the head is a little bit peeking through, which I think is accurate to the show and the original toy. I never owned the original Armada Starscream, but I'm pretty sure that is accurate on how he transformed and where that ended up. And if you do move to the back, we have these little back wings here, done with some really nice silver and red. Overall, very simple in design, not a ton of surface detailing, but overall looking very cool. And I actually really do quite like the Armada show, and Starscream was always one of my favorite characters from that show, and just in general, I think the Armada Starscream design was one of my favorite of Starscream period. From G1 to the Bay movies to TV shows, I always really like this design. Let's now get down to features and accessories. So of course the feature, you know exactly what I'm going to talk about, the whole flip forward cannons, which this feature is really for the robot mode. But you can do in this one. I don't even think that it shows in the instruction booklet how you can do this, but it's still a feature if you want to. It looks okay, of course, Blaster Piece compatible, so you can have him blasting at Decepticons or Autobots. Spoiler alert, of course, if you haven't seen the show, he actually does betray a few times from Decepticons to Autobots, so he can be fighting on his own if you want to. But be aware, if you do flip these forward, there's a bit of gaps here. You can also see some pins, so there is a bit of a cost by doing that, but overall, I think it looks okay. It probably looks better in the robot mode, in my opinion. But we can just flip these back, and let's now get down to accessories. So he does come with two, which are a bit controversial. Some people like him, some people don't. So he does come with his wing sword. If you don't know what this means, in the show he would take one of his wings and it would unfold and form a sword, and the concept is cool. I always really liked it, but the accessory, not my favorite. It's actually very plain and boring, not painted, just gray plastic, extremely boring in my opinion. I do think there was a whole designer who talked about this, and I think it did used to be a different color. I think there was some stock photos when this was first revealed and it was a different color. It might have been solid red or solid blue, which honestly I would have preferred over just gray. I really would have liked if they tried to mimic the design of the wing, like if there was a trim of red all the way on like this side or this side, and if there was like a Decepticon symbol on like near the handle or something. I think that would have looked so cool, but as it is, very boring. Honestly, I'm really glad it came with the Star Saber, because I would have been pretty disappointed if it just came with this. But yeah, unfortunately, very plain. So of course, the other part that's controversial about this accessory, a lot of people really wanted to be able to recreate the feature where it can fold up and turn into a wing. But personally, me, I don't really care about that feature that much. I do like it, but I think they didn't want to have problems like what if it folds into the sword and it breaks by one of the hinges, or what if the connection of the sword is too loose at the wing. And some people don't even want that feature. Some people want to just use the sword, and of course you do have to be aware, if you want it in the sword form, he's going to be missing a wing the entire time. So really, I think that's probably why they just scrapped the entire sword wing feature. They just went with a solid piece of a sword, which I'm okay with. Just the design I'm not really that okay with. But as for the second accessory, which also some people have some disagreements about, is the Star Saber sword. If you don't know what this is, it's not like from Transformers Prime. It's a little bit different from that. The main plot, of course, of Armada was getting all the minicons, and if you, in the show, he got 3 minicons, and it would form the Star Saber sword, which I think is a pretty cool look. I actually really do quite like it, and I would love, maybe in the Legacy Evolution or future lines, if they could make 3 minicons, maybe in the core class scale or in the Micromaster scale, that could form the Star Saber sword itself, and I'm actually perfectly fine with having two different versions, just a stock sword, and of course the minicon version. I think that's perfectly fine by me. I'm okay with that. I know some people really wanted the minicons to be like this, but you do have to be aware, if this came with 3 minicons, the price wouldn't be $35. It would probably be close to $50 in my opinion if it included 3 minicons. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm okay that it didn't come with them, because I think probably down the line sometime, I'm hoping they're going to create the full and proper Star Saber sword. But of course, the plain sword can go on the other wing just using ports and pegs, and there you have the weapon storage, which of course, swords, you know, they're always really hard to store in pretty much any vehicle. A jet, plane, car, truck, it's always really hard to make it look good and not look weird. So there it is. It looks okay. I can cut them some slack, but this sword, not okay. I'm pretty disappointed with that. But as a figure, as the Jets and the Star Saber, I'm very pleasant. I'm very happy and surprised of how good it turned out. But that's pretty much it for the jet mode, the accessories, and details. Let's now get into one quick comparison. So here he is with Voyager class Wave 2 G-Axis, another jet. Let me just put him in the back because he's a little bit bigger, of course. There we go. Zoom out a little bit, and here we have them together. They overall look pretty cool. 2 Voyagers. I do have to say, probably a Voyager-wise from Legacy so far, we've had 3 lines. Of course, 3 lines of Voyagers. I have to say, probably Wave 3 are my favorite Voyagers so far. Of course, there was the package refresh Soundwave, so some people don't count that, some people do. Just in my opinion, Inferno and Starscream have been my probably favorite Voyagers of Legacy. Let me know your favorite Voyagers in the comment section down below, but they do look very cool next to each other, and that is pretty much it for the jet mode. Let me know what you think of this jet mode in the comment section down below, and what are your thoughts on the accessories? Are you okay with the Star Saber? Are you okay with the sword? Do let me know in the comment section down below. Let's now get down to transformation into the robot mode. Let's now get down to transformation into the robot mode. So what you're going to do is start at the very back. You can flip to the bottom, and what you're going to want to do is get the arms. You can disconnect these and use this hinge and move these up like that. You can then open up these panels, and then you can flip out the hand. And I do want to mention, I'm really glad how they have panels covering these gaps, because most deluxes, whenever there's the transformation, usually you'll fold in the hand, and usually there's the gap there. Usually there's not a panel to cover that up, so I'm really glad they did it with this Voyager Starscream. Let's now move on into the legs. So you're just going to get your nail in there, untab this section here, and how this works is there is a slot and a tab, and of course a slot and tab on this side. You're going to then bring out this entire section here, and the foot actually slides into this whole slot section there, and of course this connection here. You're going to then move the leg forward, do the same thing on the other side, so just angle the leg out, just unfold it, move these forward. We can then go to the back. You can then compress these panels to fill in the gaps in the legs. You can then get the heel spur out, which can be a bit trouble. There we go. Just get your nail in there, bring the foot out, do the same thing on the other side. Just bring the heel spur out, collapse the foot completely like that, and there we have the legs all done and complete. We can now go to the top half of the figure. Let me just adjust the camera a little bit. You're going to bring this entire section down like that, which will really pop out the head, and you're going to want to bring this whole nose cone piece down, and there is a tab here, and there is a slot on the inside, and it can be sometimes a pain to align. Not the most secure connection. I kind of wish that was a little bit tighter. And as for these little mini wings, you can kind of push them in a little bit, or you can have them sticking out, really up to your personal preference. I like to push them in a little bit. And now for the last part of the arm, it's actually on a slider joint. It's a little bit easier to see from the back. You're going to push this in like that. And this is another section I think could be a little bit tighter. This side is actually pretty secure. This one is pretty loose. It really just moves back and forth, so I wish that was a little bit tighter, but a very minor complaint. You can then angle the wings like this, and then what you're going to do is push this whole section back like that. And how this was tabbed in is there is tabs here and slots on this piece right here, and that's how that tabs into place. And there we have Armada Starscream in his orbit mode, looking absolutely amazing. Let's take a look at the details. Here we have Legacy Armada Starscream in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very top with that head sculpt, some really nice gray for the face with some yellow for the eyes, and I really do like all the black for the helmet section, and there's some really cool like layered and vent sections on the side of the face and the top, very accurate to the Armada show. Going down to the wing, of course, same design on both sides, the really nice stripe of red on the outer part, and a very classic Decepticon symbol on the center with some gray paneling detailing on the rest of the wing. As for the arms, some really nice black and yellow and some red up top with really nice gray for the forearm and some nice red for the forearm as well with some black for the hand. I think that looks pretty good. And the entire chest section actually looks super cool, that nice metallic blue and the really cool wings, which you can have sticking straight out like this, or you can kind of push them in if you want to, just to have them not getting in the way of the arms, and some nice red for the top of the legs. And I really do like these huge like wing spikes sticking out of the knees. That actually looks super cool, and again, very accurate, but I really do like that design. Some really nice red and gray with quite a bit of black for the rest of the legs and some red for the feet. And if you do flip to the back, overall there's really no hollow gaps. Of course the only hollowness is really in the legs, and these sections kind of cover them up, but you can see there's a few squares here and there, but overall really not that bad. I think it's a very solid figure and overall looks very, very nice. And of course, you may have already noticed, why are these arms moving whenever I was picking up? They kind of rock back and forth. That is because since the arm is on a swivel, or not swivel, a pin joint, if I just move this out of the way, as you can see there is a pin there, that's due to transformation. You have it out for the jet mode and in for the robot, so they are a little bit loose or kind of wiggly, which is unfortunate. They can hold a pose. I just wanted to make you aware, because for my assumption, I think this is going to be everyone's copy. I think this is just how it's built. I don't think it's defective. I think this is going to be everyone's, but it can hold a pose. You can have him hold his sword. It can move out. It doesn't flop or anything, but be aware it is a little bit wibbly or wobbly, whatever you want to call it, which is a bit unfortunate, but honestly I think it could have been way worse. It could have been the arms are just completely noodles and it can't hold a pose at all, so it definitely could have been worse. But just be aware, I think this is probably going to be an every copy type of thing. Who knows, maybe it could be different with someone else's copy, but I think this is really a part of the construction of the mold itself. The pin joint just wasn't tight enough when they were making this, but that's really the only problem I have with the robot mode. Let's now get down to articulation. So for the head, it can move up and down, of course, tilt side to side, look side to side as well. The wing can actually move forward and back if you want more of an angled pose. Let's move that back just to get that out of the way for the arm articulation, so the shoulder can move out and in, up and down all the way around. There is also a swivel at the bicep, a way past 90 elbow bends, and unfortunately there is no wrist swivel, which I really think they could have, but you can actually sort of angle the wrist. If you open up this panel, you can have it sort of angled like that, and he can hold his sword, which I think is pretty cool, so you can do some really nice poses with that. But again, I think they definitely could have worked in a wrist swivel. There is actually waist articulation, but what you're going to probably want to do is just have some more clearance, is move the cannons up, and you can untab this just so it doesn't bump into these sections here. There is a full waist rotation, which is pretty nice. The wings are on a hinge, so you can angle these forward and back. The leg can kick that far out, that far forward, that far back if you move the cannons out of the way. There is a way past 90 knee bends, and there is a small ankle pivot. I think that could have been a little bit better, and you can actually point the toe, but that is really due to transformation. Let me just straighten him up a little bit. He is a little bit messed up right now, but overall pretty articulation for a Voyager figure. I don't have that many complaints. I think there could be a better ankle pivots and probably a wrist swivel. Honestly, of the two, I would rather have a wrist swivel than an ankle pivot. I probably use that more often when posing figures around. But we're all looking very cool, definitely very accurate to the Armada show, looking amazing. Let's now get down to the accessories. So it comes with the two we mentioned earlier very briefly. The really cool Starsaber sword, which I think looks really nice, then that really nice blue and gray, and you can have him hold it in his hand, which I think looks very cool. He was one of the main characters that uses this weapon the most. Megatron used it a few times, also Hotshot, which we are going to be getting a Armada Hotshot very soon, which I'm really looking forward to, so you can do some pretty cool poses with this sword if you want to. And that's pretty much it storage-wise. There is some Mech-Tech ports on like the forearms. You can still, if you want to, plug them on the back of the wings. That's the same storage from earlier in the jet mode. But as for, of course, the main way you're going to store it is probably like this. As for the other accessory, again, not my favorite, as I mentioned earlier, is the sort of wing sword, if you want to call it, which it doesn't actually have that gimmick, but you can put this in his hands, which, again, I do like swords. If you're a long-time viewer of mine, I always really like them. They look super cool with figures. Like with Shadowglass Starscream, when that figure came out, I thought that was awesome. It came with two really cool blue Energon blades, but this sword here, it seems kind of cheap and weak. It was supposed to recreate that really cool wing sword, but it's just done in gray plastic, I think, which again looks really unfinished, really cheap. I think they could have done a little bit better, but I'm glad it comes with two. This sword is way better, so this will probably be the main one I have him display with. Maybe I'll just put this on his wing because I don't like it that much, but that is pretty much it for the accessories, articulation, and details. Let's now get down to some comparisons. So here he is with the previously reviewed Voyager from Legacy Wave 3. Here he is with Inferno. And if you missed that review, make sure you check that out on the channel after this review you're watching right now. And I think they look very cool next to each other. And in my personal opinion of Legacy so far, the three waves that I have, of course, I have not completed Wave 3 just yet. I have several of the figures, but of the Voyagers, I think these are probably my favorite. That is just my opinion. But they do look very cool next to each other. Take him off to the side. And now for another Voyager figure, which this is another really good one. This was from Wave 2 G-Axis, which this one was like my all-time favorite. I think probably Armada Starscream just took his place. But they do look very cool next to each other. Size-wise, he's a little bit more chunky, more of a slender, kind of sleeker look for Starscream. But height-wise, they're pretty close. We're all looking very cool. And for one last Legacy Wave 3 comparison, I actually recently did get Crankcase, and I will be getting Point Blank very, very soon, so make sure you stay tuned on the channel for that review as well. And they do look very cool next to each other. I'm really looking forward to Skullgrin. I'm going to try and get him as fast as possible, because that figure probably will be one of my favorite Legacy figures of all time, because I love his design. That's pretty much it for the comparisons. As for, of course, the one last feature that you just have to show off, which I think looks super cool when he has both of his swords in hand, is the, of course, flip-out cannon feature, which I think is so awesome. So what you have to do is move this entire section up, bring this right section down, which again is these tabs and slots that just tabs right into place. And then, of course, you can flip the cannons forward, which you can have angled up like this, or you can have them all the way down. And I think that looks absolutely awesome. Again, Blastopeus compatible, so you can have him blasting at some Autobots or Decepticons, because again, spoiler alert, he does sometimes betray in that show several times, so I think that looks super, super cool. And that is pretty much it for the robot mode, so let's now get down to the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Armada Starscream. Let's now get down to the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Voyager Armada Starscream. Starting in the robot mode, overall design-wise, looks absolutely amazing. I think the Armada Starscream is probably one of my favorite designs of the character through movies, shows, video games, anything. This is probably my top favorite look of Starscream, period. Amazing backstory, it looks super cool in the show, and very accurate to the show. I think they did a really good job recreating his look in this toy form. And of course, his accessories, they're okay. I'm just going to get my complaints out of the way, because overall, I think this figure is amazing. I don't want to discourage anyone from getting it because it's a really, really good figure. So probably I really only have two, or I would say three complaints of the robot mode. First being is the accessories. I think the Star Saber is perfectly fine. I think a lot of people wanted is the 3 minicons to form it, which this is just a solid stock sword. It does not separate into minicons, which I do hope they do later. I'm perfectly fine with 2 versions, one that's just a sword and one that's minicons, because of course, if they do make a version of 3 minicons that make the sword, it's going to be a lot bigger than this one, so I'm perfectly fine with 2 versions. My complaint about the other accessory, which is the wing sword, I think it's very plain and bland and boring. I'm really glad this came with 2 accessories, because I'd be very disappointed if this was the only sword we got. It's supposed to recreate the whole feature from the show in the original toy. If you don't know, he would actually take one of his wings and it would unfold and form into the sword, and a lot of people wanted that gimmick. I do understand. I think the reason why they didn't is because they were worried maybe trying to do the whole sword folding feature, it could maybe break, because it would be a very thin sword. You know, it needs to be the exact same size as the other wing, not just one random small one and one random big one. Also, of course, I think most people wanted the full wing look, because if you don't know, if you want it to be in the sword configuration, you're going to be stuck with the Starscream with only one wing on one side, which I think will look a little bit odd to some people. So I think they probably just wanted to go with the normal Starscream without the wing gimmick, because it's been a while since they've made an Armada Starscream, and I'm not sure when they're going to make one again. If they do make another version, I would be perfectly fine with the wing gimmick now, because I have the plain, good, normal version right here. So 2 versions, I would be perfectly fine with. My other complaint is, unfortunately, the arms, if you didn't see earlier, they're actually on a pin joint, or a swivel joint for the transformation. And yes, he can hold a pose, but unfortunately they're actually a little bit wobbly, as you can see here. Again, they can hold a pose. I don't want to discourage you from buying it, because it's a really good figure. This could just be a my copy type of thing. I really don't think it is, guys. I've seen a few other reviews mentioning this nitpick as well. I don't think they've been as bad as mine. They've been a little bit tighter, but I think pretty much anyone's copy will be a little bit kind of wobbly or shaky on the leg, not on the legs, the arms, I think, in some area. They just really need to make that pin joint a little bit better, or do a different system for the arm, because it really didn't work with this. But honestly, I really don't have a big problem with that, because if they couldn't hold a pose, that would be my biggest complaint. I would probably send it back and maybe not get the figure, but it can hold a pose, which is probably one of the most important things for the arm to do. My other small nitpick complaint is the articulation. I think the ankle pivot could be a little bit better. It can actually point the toe, which is always nice, but that's really due to transformation. Another thing they probably could have put in is a wrist swivel, but what's actually really nice is there is not a wrist swivel, but due to transformation, there is actually a panel that can open in the back of the arm, so you can actually sort of angle the hand down to have more of a dynamic pose. Also, of course, the amazing feature of the flip-out cannons. This looks absolutely amazing. You can put them in some really cool poses, looking super, super cool. And there's a lot of really nice customizable options. You can actually have the cannons angled up like this, or you can have them fully down. You can have the wings angled back. You can have tons of really cool poses. I think it's a super fun, playable figure. Down to transformation, I think overall, not that complex. There's a few times where it's a little bit hard to transform a certain area going into the jet mode from the robot mode. I think jet to robot is probably a little bit easier. It's hard to describe, but there is a whole panel section here which sometimes does come untabbed. It doesn't break. You can just pop it back on. That's why I started from the jet mode, because I did not want it to pop off during transformation. So do be a little bit aware of that. Maybe going to the jet mode, it could pop off, so make sure you don't lose that piece, because it is pretty small. But honestly, it's only popped off twice, and that was several days ago, and it has not popped off since. So it's kind of a one-time thing that you might have to do whenever taking it out of the box. The jet mode overall looks super, super cool. You can actually flip up the cannons if you want to. This feature is really more for the robot mode. I don't think he ever really used it in the jet mode. He might have used it maybe once or twice during the show. It's been a while since I've seen that show. But you can still do the feature if you want to. Be aware it might open up some gaps in the back like this does here, so you'll have a few gaps in the jet mode, so kind of be aware of that. Storage for the accessories are not the greatest, which honestly I typically do not expect storage to be that great. Pretty much in any vehicle, it's never really good storing a sword. A truck, a car, a plane, any vehicle, it really never looks that great. You just attach them onto the wings, which if you don't know, you can still attach them onto the wings if you want to. If you just want him to be holding a Star Saber, you can get the other sword and store it on these ports in the back, which is probably what I might do, because I'm not really a big fan of that sword. So overall, I think it's a really solid figure. Yes, there's a few problems here and there, but I have to say probably the Wave 3 Voyagers probably have to be my favorite Voyagers of Legacy so far. I have not completed the Legacy Wave 3 just yet, but of the Voyagers, I'm most impressed with these. I think they look absolutely amazing. Highly suggest to get them. To be aware, of course, there is a few problems, but I think you can easily overlook them, because it's a very, very solid figure, in my opinion. Hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time.